Well, hey there. Okay, so we're going to do a 10 stitch blanket in my June owl stitch. Now what we have to do here is use 11 stitches, but you can make it bigger or smaller. You just need to have uneven pegs. Okay, so I'm going to use 11 stitches. I'm on a 5/8 inch gauge Cindy Wood loom, and you're going to need to mark your loom. So we have 2 edge stitches on each side, which I've marked with dark, and then the 3rd peg I've marked with another marker, and the 5th peg, and the 7th peg, and the 9th peg. We want to end on the same stitch, so that's why we have it uneven like this. Okay, so you can get these kind of stitch markers on Amazon. They are the small, for small knitting, and they're silicone stitch markers. Size small. They fit on the pegs perfectly. They come in nice packs for very, very, very economical. Now the yarn I'm using is a chunky yarn. It's I Love This Chunky Yarn in the color Plum Garden. Okay, so let's just get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the yarn and I'm going to make a slip knot. And then I'm just going to slip it on the first peg here. Okay. Now I'm just adjusting that a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now, once we have the slip knot on, we're going to take the working yarn and we're going to scoop it up into a loop. Okay. And we're going to keep this tight. And once we have the loop, which you're in control of, you can make this loop bigger or smaller. We're going to take this loop and put it behind the next peg and slip the working yarn through it. Okay, if you don't want to do this cast on, you can do another cast on you like. The cast on doesn't matter that much. Okay, I'm going to go behind again and scoop the working yarn through, behind again, scoop it through, behind again, scoop it, and just go all the way to the end here. And then I'm just going to slip this one on the last peg and knit it over. Like that. Okay. And then for the next row, I'm going to do a row of owl eye. I'm going to go over this peg, okay, and this peg at the same time. So I'm going to keep this nice and loose. I'm going to knit this over, this over. I'm going to go over this again and over this one. Okay, and if you haven't done owl eye before, you're on peg 1. You go over 1 and 2, nice and loose, and knit it off. On peg 1, go over peg 1 and 2, nice and loose, knit it off. On peg 1, over 1 and 2, nice and loose. Peg 1, over 1 and 2, nice and loose. Okay, all the way to the end. I have lots of videos on owl eye. If you're not familiar, you should get familiar with it before you do this blanket. Okay, now we're going to go right into the pattern. So on the edge, we're always going to do owl eye stitch. So come over again, keeping this loose and just knitting it off. Okay, and then I'm going to put my second wrap on owl eye. So I come from behind and go over and put my second wrap on it. And now that edge is complete. Now I've got my first marked peg. So on every marked peg, I'm going to do juniper berry stitch. So to do that, I go over the peg, behind, and over the peg again. Now I have 3 pieces of yarn on this peg. I'm going to take the bottom one, put it over the top, the bottom one, and put it over the top again, and snug it up. Now I'm going to do owl eye on 1 peg. So I'm going to go over in a U-wrap. From behind, I'm going to come in front and go over it like this and knit it off. Then I'm going to go to this peg here. I'm going to wrap the yarn over twice, take the bottom one over the top two, next bottom one over the top, snug it up. Go over it in a U-wrap, and back, go over it again, come in front, and go in front again. 3 working yarn, 3 pieces of yarn here, and this is the working yarn that's going over twice. Now we're going to take the loop from the bottom, there, put over the top, and then the next one. And if you get mixed up, you can just separate them and pull, and you'll see that this one's moving when I pull this, so this is the top yarn. If they ever get mixed up, put over the top. Okay, now come like this and come back over in front. Okay, here you're going to do what? You're going to do the double stitch here and take this over the top and this one over. Okay, and then what do you do here? Owl eye. So go over, come back over like this, nice and loose. Okay, make sure this is loose. You can always loosen it in case you're getting too tight. Have a nice edge that way. Come over and then do your second stitch on owl eye, and then we just do the reverse. We come back. We're always doing the same stitch. So when we're on this one, we wrap it twice, bottom one over the top, next one over. Okay, knit it, and you can start really going unless your yarn does this, you can start going really, really fast. Okay, and I'll slow down. We go over, come back, go over it again, off, double yarn here. Okay, and then owl eye edge. Come back nice and loose. Second wrap on here. Juniper berry stitch. And we're just going to keep going like this until we get long enough. Now, if you're going to make a rectangular blanket, you're going to do this longer than if you make a square blanket. The rule of thumb is whatever shape your first panel is will be the shape of your blanket. So if your starting shape is a square before you actually do the corners, when you just do the first starting piece, if it's a square, you're going to have a square blanket. If it's a rectangle, you'll have a rectangle blanket that shape. Okay, so you can do it just as much as you want. I don't count rows or anything, especially because I use all these different stitches. They're going to be different. So I'm going to do a rectangular blanket, so I'm going to do it until I get the shape that I want, and then we'll be ready to start our corners. So I'll keep going until I get to where I want to be, and then we will catch up. Okay, so we will we'll see you in a bit. Okay, so here's mine, and it's in a rectangle shape. Not going to be a really long rectangle. I want just a slight rectangle. And it's looking good. Now, we're going to start doing corners. You're always going to be starting your corner at the same place, okay? So, we're going to start doing our short rows on this side. So what we're going to do is come knit down to that side, okay? So we're always going to do the patterns. So we're going to do the juniper berry stitch here. And then we're going to knit over here and knit over here again, doing the owl eye on one peg, juniper berry stitch, owl eye, juniper berry. Roll eye on one peg, come back around in front. Okay. Now we're going to do the owl eye on this peg. So we're going to do it on one peg. Now we're going to knit over and come back around and pull this tight. We're going to do a German short row here and pull it in front. And we're going to pull it in front until you see two loops here. So I pull it in front. It's hard on the white, but I'll open it up so you can see. There's two loops here, like a V. See, there's like a V here. Because I pulled it this far. That's a German short row. So I pulled it over here and I'm ready to do the owl eye, which is the stitch to do on this peg. Keeping it nice and tight and coming around and doing the owl eye again. And then here we do the juniper stitch. Owl eye on one peg. Juniper berry. Owl eye on one peg. Juniper berry. And then we just do the pattern all the way to the end of the row. Then we do the pattern back. And we're going to go all the way back doing the stitch till we come to the second peg from the end. Okay? And we're going to go over that one and just knit it. And then we're going to pull it to the front again. And this time you'll be able to see the V. Okay? See, there's a V there. Okay, so sideways V means you got it tight enough. And then the next stitch is the juniper. We always do the right stitches on the right pegs. Going to be tight to get it over though, but we want to keep it tight. I'm holding it tight because I want to keep those stitches tight there so we have a nice corner. Okay? So we do owl eye here. Here we don't have to be tight. And keeping this nice and loose on the edge. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do it on the next peg. Okay, so now we have to do this peg. Now it doesn't matter that this peg is a different stitch. We still go over it in a knit and then pull it until we see the V, and then into the next, the stitch that's supposed to be on this peg. Okay, and you're just going to keep doing that, going back and forth and putting the next peg into the short row until we get close to here. So I'm just going to put it on pause and we'll catch up when we've picked up most of the pegs and we're down there. So we'll see you in a bit. Okay, so we just have a few more to pick up. So doing Juniper Berry stitch here. And then we do the 1 peg owl eye stitch. Whoop. Nope, we don't do the 1 peg owl stitch. This is the one we're picking up. So I'm going to put that back on the loom. Whoop, I don't have all the yarn here. There we go, got it back on. And now we're just going to do the short row on it. There we go. Oop. Juniper Berry. Keep that nice and tight because we want that short row to look really good. Okay, and then do the owl eye edge. Keeping this end peg nice and loose here. Okay, then all we do, our second stitch on here, we're going to do, whoop, we're going to do this one. There we go. I got to pay more attention here to what I'm doing and not where I am in the camera. Give this a tug into the German row. Okay, now we're going to come back nice and loose, but we are going to do this as a knit and do a German row here, and that's the last one. Put this over and we have completed corner part 1. Now we're going to pick them up. That's corner part 2, but if we take a look at it, we have done half of the corner, this wedge from where we were. And now we start picking them up. So what we're going to do is knit this end peg nice and loose and come over and knit all these bottom short row over. It'll be tight. And then we're going to come back. We're still keeping that peg nice and loose. And then we're going to come back. We completed that. Second stitch on the owl eye. And we're going to pick up this one, and we just pick it up with a U-wrap. Take it over, and we just come back with the U-wrap over it. And then we do the regular stitches now. Okay. So come back to pick up the next one. Do the proper stitch on this peg. Okay, and then we just do a U-wrap over the peg we're picking up. We come back, giving it just a nice U-wrap again. And now this is a Juniper Berry peg. You knit it over. And then ally here. So I think you're seeing how to do this. Okay, juniper berry here. Here is ally on one peg. Picking up the next one. And we're coming back. This one's ally. This one's juniper berry. Okay, so we're just going to keep going back and forth, picking up all these stitches so we can catch up when we get further along, but we can take a look at what's happening here. So what you see happening here is this is the corner right here. We've come up, done corner part 1. Now that we're doing corner part 2 and we're coming down here, we're getting more of a corner showing. It looks kind of funky, but it's the way it's supposed to look at this point. Okay. So we'll catch up when we're a little bit further down. Okay, so here I am, and I'm coming down, and I'm about to pick up the last one of the German short rows. So here I do juniper berry stitch, and then here it's owl eye, and I come over this peg and knit it off. And come back. And then we're just going to knit all the way back to the beginning, doing the pattern. And like I said, sometimes they get really close together and you can't see, but it goes that way. Okay, I'm just going to pause it here for a minute. Now what we're going to do now is we have to do another corner part 1 and part 2. And the only time we ever have to do 2 sets like that is on the very first one. And I'll show you here. Now we have the whole corner done. And it's looking really nice. See how the pattern is even turning the corner? Oh, looking really, really good. And so what's happened is we started off with our rectangle. We made the corner, and so we're this way. Now we have to make another corner that fits there so that we can come down and pick this up. And after that, we only do one corner at a time as we go around. So this is the only time we're going to do the corners twice. So corner part 1 and part 2, and then again corner part 1 and part 2. So now we're going to knit all our way down and pick up that one into the German short row, come back, pick up that one in the German short row. We're always going to be doing our corners exactly from the same peg here where we start. Okay, so I'll just put you on pause. I'll go down and pick that one up. Okay, so I'm down here. So I do all eye on this peg, come down here, knit this one off, whoop, and pull it into the German row so that we have the sideways V there, and get over that one. Second stitch there. It's a little bit tight, but we want it tight while we're close to there. Loosen it up a little bit though now. Okay. And now it's nice and loose. Okay, so I think you get the idea. I'm going to knit back, come back, and put the next one into the German row and go all the way, finish it the way we did there, and come back and complete corner part 1 and part 2. So if you need help, just rewind it to where we did the corner part 1 and part 2, because it's exactly the same. We're going to be doing exactly the same thing, and we'll meet up when we finish corner part 1 and part 2 again, and I'll show you the next thing that you do. So we will see you then. Okay, so here we are, and you've done corner part 1 and corner part 2, and then corner part 1 and corner part 2 again. So we can look at it. See if I can get this so you can see it well. Okay, without it coming off the loom. Okay, we started here, and I did that piece. That was a rectangular piece. It ended right about there. Okay. Then I did corner part 1 and 2, and it did this and this. And then corner part 1 and 2, and it did this and this. And so now it's going this way. And that's the only time we do them twice. From now on every corner, you just do corner part 1 and 2 one time. And so this is how we're looking. It looks really good. The pattern just goes right in, turns the corner. It took me quite a few times to figure out exactly how to do this, to have it so that it would be more continuous as it turned the corner. It can be a little hard for you to see on the camera and the different colors of yarn, but it's easy for me to see it. And turn it different ways so you can see how the pattern is going on the corners. Okay, so that's how you should look. If you don't look like this, something's wrong. And if we look at it from the inside, it makes it a little easier to see it. Here's the part where I started, corner part 1 and 2, and corner part 1 and 2 over here. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is the same side that we were always starting to do the short row is where we're going to be joining the blanket. Now, what you need to do, and I really strongly encourage this, because you might think you'll be able to find it, but it's a lot easier to mark the corners before. Okay, so the first stitch you're going to pick up is right here where I've put this marker. And the reason to do it early is this used to be up here, but as we did further in our work and we're ready to put it on, it tends to get longer here. So you might think you have to put it in right here, right where these two loops are. And if you do that, this is the two loops that's actually joined to this. It's not the new loop, and you want to put the new loop on. And so it's hard to sometimes see, and you can keep putting on the same loop that you have right here and not even know it. So it's better to mark it. So I'll just show you how to do that. Okay, so I take my stitch marker out, and you're going to look at it, and you can stretch it to open it. And what you're going to see is, as you stretch it, you've got these two little lines up here, and then this little dot sort of thing here, the two lines, a little dot thing, the two lines from this kind of edge. So you're going to go in where you see these two lines, and you're going to see there's a hole there. And you can even look at it this way, where you see there's a hole there, then there's this little braided looking work, then there's another hole here, a little bit of braided work, another hole here. So you can just see where these holes are. These are the edges you're going to pick up. So if you want to, you can put a stitch marker in every one of those. Just put the stitch marker right in here and be picking up these two pieces of yarn on top. You can see them right here, these two pieces of yarn. That's what you're picking up. So if you have this on here, and you can clearly see when you pull on this that it's moving in here, it's attached to these pieces. And whereas if I'm here and I'm pulling this, it's only attached to there. So this is the piece, but it's best to put it on early. Okay, then as we go around, we're going to be picking up here. And we're going to be picking up right till we get to the last edge stitch, which is this one right here. If you want, you can mark all these stitches. Right? You're going to put the stitch marker here where the two edge pieces are. I'll show you the one before. It'll be easier to see because it's blue. Actually, if I turn down the light, yeah, then we can see them a little bit better. So, two here, two here. So everywhere there's a hole here, you're picking up those two stitches. Okay, so that helps you to see it. So when you're doing the last two on this side, then you have the corner, which looks like this. What the corner looks like. It's got a piece of yarn here and a couple small pieces here. And then this is my next two stitches to pick up right here. So I marked it. So we finish here, and then we start this one. And you might want to use different stitch markers, like mark here, and then you could mark all along there. I just use the one. I have no problem finding them. It's just the first one that I find hard. And but some people find it harder. Then when we get over to here, we have the cast on row. This will be the last two stitches, but because it was a cast on, you end up being a little further down where you find the first workable piece that you can put the stitch marker in. And then I even went all the way back to here. Same thing, it's dark. So here's your last piece here, here's your first piece here, and so I put the marker there. That will just help you, okay? But if you need more help, you have a hard time seeing, mark every single one. There, go down there, go down there. See, they open right up. Really open up really good on this blanket. Okay, so time to get started. So the first thing we're going to do, and you've done all of the attaching, you've worked your way all the way up to the front, and I've just done the first two owl eye stitches. I like to do that to just secure the yarn. So what we're going to do is go in and put this first stitch on the loom, and I'm just going to pull it out and put it on. And take my loom hook out. Okay, so now I've got these two pieces on the loom. Okay, now what you can do, and it's up to you, is if you like the 10 stitch blankets that have a big ridge, is you can leave these on and wait till we come back to pick it up. Or if you want to do what I like to do, to use the Tamson join to just make the ridge a little bit smaller so that you barely see it, is take this piece of yarn and just knit it over. Now what it'll do is it'll hold the work down, and it will make your join be not as big because it won't have as much yarn there. Okay, but then I'm going to go down and pick that one up. So I'm going to do the owl eye stitch. I believe I've done 2 on here, but I'm just going to check to make sure there's 2 stitches, and there was. I like to check just to make sure that's what I've done. I'm having a hard time getting this on because it's hard to see from behind, and I don't want to move off camera. There we go, back on. So I'm going to put my 1 stitch on it, have my 2nd stitch on it. I'm going to do the juniper berry stitch here. Going to do the owl eye on 1 peg here, juniper berry here. Anyway, you know the drill by now. And I snugged it up. Okay, and now we're just going to come over and pick this up like normal. And now we're going to take these 2 bottom over the top. Okay. And then we're just going to come back normally. So we do the owl eye there, and here, and our 2nd stitch. And we just work our way back to the front. And I usually go about this far, working my way to the front, because I'm going to put the next stitch on since we just picked up this stitch. So my next stitch, I'm looking here, it's going to be right here, these 2, because this one here is joined to it, and now it's easier to see because there's some work over here. So it's just easier to see that this is the next one to pick up. So I just put those 2 stitches on, and because I'm going to do the Tamsin join, I'm just going to secure this like this and then knit my way back, and I'll be picking it up. And it's too soon to really see, but we are picking up that side, so we'll have to look at it later. So I'm just going to make my way back, and I think you know what to do now. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead a little bit to almost the end. You're just going to keep going back and forth and picking up another side stitch, working your way down until you get to the last stitch in this row, which is this stitch right here, because this is the corner. That's this stitch right here, these 2 pieces of yarn, and there's the hole for them. Okay, so just keep doing that, and we'll catch up there, and then we'll have a look at it. So we will see you in a bit. Okay, so I've picked up that whole side, and I've done the last one, and I've just started to knit my way back here for the next step. And the next, you can see that the stitch markers here, and so then I'll know that'll be the side after I do my corner part 1 and part 2. This is the first side I start connecting again and work my way down. Now, if you didn't have this stitch marker in here, you'd have a hard time knowing that this is where you do it, because the stitches are always about here that you put on. So it's really important to put these stitch markers in on those corners. And if you use stitch marks along the side, differentiate them. You can even mark it with a black felt pen or anything so that you know that's where you start the new row to pick up. Okay, so I'm working my way down because I've already done it, and now let's take a look at our join. So if I go like this and we look to see where it's joined, it's nice and flat, and you can't even really tell where the join is unless you look really, really close, because this is the join right here, and it blends so nicely in with these that you can't even tell, and it's no more raised than they are. So it's just perfect. The best join to use with this. If you want to, you can have more of a ridged look if you like that, but we'll still see. You can still see that we're turning corners by following these lines and going around. So doing the Tamsin join, that's the kind of join that you'll get. And it just looks great. Okay. Now, on the other side, this is your opposite side of the blanket. And it looks nice too, but it's nice and soft to have against you. This is the join coming up here, and it's nice and flat again. Okay. So now we do corner part 1 and corner part 2, and we only do that one time. One complete corner, because in the beginning, when we came up to here, we had to get all the way over to here to join. So we had to do corner part 1, corner part 2 to get over here. Now we've got the stitch marker here. We only need to actually join this side, because then we're already going down here. Okay, so there's only one corner part 1 and 2. So to do that, we just go over, knitting normal. And now we're going to knit this and do the German short row. Pull it into the V. And then knit back. And you can look back in the video if you forget how to do corner part 1 and 2. But that's all there is to it. So do your corner part 1 and 2. Okay, and after you do the corner part 1 and 2, you're going to find that you've picked up all these, you've finished doing them, and you're ready to pick up this stitch here to do this side. Okay, so do your corner part 1 and 2, and we'll be turning the corner again so that we can go along here and keep going all along the blanket. So we'll meet you up after you do your 1 and 2, and we start to pick up this side down to the cast on. Okay, so we'll see you in a bit. Have fun and enjoy. Okay, so we finished doing corner part 1 and 2 again, and now here's the blanket with all this, and then corner part 1 and part 2 up there. And now what we have to do is pick up this side, one after the other, all along like we did before, down to where we cast on. And as you can see, when I talk about putting in these stitch markers, see how it's dropped way down here? And so how you could get quite confused if you didn't have stitch marker in there. It's really quite important, I think, to be able to put those stitch markers in. So I put the stitch marker on there, take it off, and then because of the type of way I'm connecting it, I'm going to use the Tamsin join. Okay, now some of you are going to say, well, do I have to do an owl eye edge? Can't I just slip it? No, you can't. Well, you can, but what's going to happen is you're not going to have this nice flat seam that matches the rest of it, because it's the owl eye stitch that's making it look like this. It's even hard to pick out the one that is the join. It blends in very, very nicely. So you're going to want to do the owl eye edge if you want to have it looking like this. But you know, if you don't want it to look like that, you'll have it look like a slipped edge join will look like. And if you do the Tamsin join with that, it won't look like my owl eye stitch doing the Tamsin join. Although you could just do it that way and have a ridge if you want, but it's entirely up to you. It'll be your blanket. Okay, so now that I have this set and I'm going to start picking them up, you should know what you're doing. You're going to pick this up to here, all the way up to where the join is, and then you're going to do corner 1 and corner 2 again, and then this will go on the loom, and you'll pick up this edge, and you'll go down to the last stitch, and then you'll do corner 1 and 2 again. You'll pick up that one. You'll keep going around and around and around and around until you are done. And when you want to end your blanket, what you're going to want to do is end it on an edge. So if once we finish this corner, we'll be at this edge here. And so that's where you would just bind off. You want to do a bind off that kind of matches the edge on the rest of it. You can do any bind off you want. I'll have a bind off on this channel, and you can use that when you get it as long as you want. Or you can just do a basic bind off loosely. Whatever you want to do, it's only going to be 11 stitches you're binding off. So, no. Well, I guess it depends where you do it. It could be more stitches, but it won't be a lot to bind off. You could just be binding off what's on here, your 11 stitches. So, anyway, you would want to do it where the blanket's even and it's the shape you want, because as you go around, when we've done this, the blanket's going to be very rectangular, but when I go down the side, it's going to be the shape that I started with again. And that's the way that it goes as you're doing it. But it's a lot of fun, so we'll just keep going for a while, and then we'll catch up when a lot more is done and have a look at the blanket and everything. But you know what you're doing, so go for a while, and we'll catch up, and you'll see where I am, and have a lot of fun with this one. It's a really nice looking blanket. I really, really, really like this pattern. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you do too. So we'll see you in a bit. Okay, so here we are. I've got my blanket now. I've gone all the way around, and it's back into its original shape that it was when I did my first piece here. It's in just a bit of a rectangular square, although it's on the loom so you can't see. That's exactly that, really easy. But that's what'll happen. Whatever you start with, that's what you'll end up having. So it's starting to look really, really good. Look at this. It's just beautiful. I really like the pattern. Looks really nice on the other side. It's got nice edges. It's not curling. The pattern's going all the way around it. So I'm really happy with it, and I'm sure you will be too, and have lots of fun. And I'm going to keep going, and you keep going, and I'm just going to end the video here because you know what to do. You just keep going around and around. I just finished going up to here, so I'm going to do my corner 1 and 2. Then I'm going to go along with picking up that side, corner 1 and 2, along picking up this side, 1 and 2, corner, picking up this side, and you just keep going around and around and around till you're ready to bind off. Okay, so have a really good time, and we'll see you next time. Bye.